Welcome back. This is an amazing episode of I Quit My Job, where we dive into the extraordinary and the bold stories of those who've dared to kind of like make a path on their own. And we have an amazing story by Hans Pope, a visionary artist who uses traditional African art and print. He went from being in a successful career in advertising to now just being in Tanzania for a year and a story that's compelling as his art. We're here inside the York
Gallery.
Minster Gallery, Park Gallery, which Hans is showcasing his work from. It's in a beautiful space, and it's a pleasure to have you here, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for
Likewise,
giving us
brother.
this opportunity.
My name's Hans Pope. Born and raised in Tanzania, and I came here when I was around 8 years old.
Wow. So, how about like your school and stuff? Where'd you go to school? And
College, I went to Humber College.
right.
Prior to that, I basically grew up all around Toronto, so mostly Mississauga,
Okay, so you've been in Canada longer than you've been in Tanzania.
100%.
So you lived in Tanzania. Your work is also deeply rooted in African identity. How do you balance the two cultures?
When we first came here, one of the first things my father and my mom used to always remind us was never forget your roots and never forget your identity. I remember going to school and we were kind of like the new kids in the block, but it was like always like a negative thing. And I didn't know how to speak English. Every time we would go home, we would always be crying because we were being picked on, we'd be bullied. So my father was always like, listen, don't let them tell you otherwise. Just remember who you guys are. Remember where you came from. So that also always became a thing in our family. We spoke Swahili. My mom's always cooked Tanzanian food.
Right.
Even when I go back now and I visit, my own cousins will be like, Mzungu, meaning like,
Foreigner or
yeah,
something like
or
that?
yeah,
Oh,
like
that's
white
good.
person,
Right.
but like
Oh,
foreigner. But
right.
I take it, yeah,
Yeah, you got to take it. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. It's one of those things, the dichotomy of like living in two different continents, and
what are some of the meaningful stories that you've captured on your canvas, and why did they resonate with you so well?
since I was young, I would go to galleries, I go to these museums, school trips, and every time I looked up at the beautiful, beautiful painting, I never quite saw myself. It was always someone else's story. When I started pursuing art a little bit more seriously, in the beginning, I really didn't know which direction I was going to go. I didn't know what kind of artwork. I did a whole bunch of it. And then eventually, I've been going back and forth to Tanzania. At some point when I came back here and I was working, I just one day decided that it just clicked. Something just clicked where
Right.
I was working with a lot of layers and I was working with a bit of abstract piece. And I decided I was going to try and merge the two.
Mhm.
And the first piece that I put together was a photo that I took of two kids playing in this town called Iringas where I grew up, where me and my brother used to play. So it's like a marketplace. And they reminded me of me.
Right.
I was
Right.
like, there's something to that, right? Like,
Okay. Okay.
and that was, I think, was one of the first times where I realized there is something I can share. There's something I can add to this great history of art, and that's part of the challenge is like, it's such a long history. What can you possibly say that hasn't already been said?
You did some bold career moves. It's very bold what you did. You have a successful career in advertising, and like you said, you're mingling with art, but you're not feeling it. You're just
Yeah.
mingling with art. So, and then you went to Tanzania. So, what was that like? That bold step? I know somewhere I read you said that it was really slow, and
Right,
you
right,
know you
right.
got to get used to that.
Yeah.
Explain like what happened when
Yeah. So
to make that move.
I left school. I was doing everything was great. I got my first gig as a designer. I was working for a handful of years at that point, steadily climbing that ladder, and everything was good. And I kind of saw this moment in my life where I was like, everything's predictable. I was like, I'm going to be working here for a few years and then move on to the next one. And when I get 2.5 kids, I'm supposed to, get a specific kind of car. And it kind of like got me, gave me kind of an anxiety attack. So I decided to throw like a monkey wrench in my story. And I decided to go back to Tanzania. Mostly it was because I was like, I see how my career is progressing, but what does it really mean to be Tanzanian? So I went back and I told everybody that I was gonna go for like about 3 months. I ended up staying there for a year and a half. I got myself a job. I got myself, like I was basically ready to live there, move there. So when I came back, by default, the version I was before I left and the
Right.
version I came back is
Right. Okay, let me stop you there for a second. Based on a quote you said that life in advertising felt like it was already mapped out career ladder, mortgage, promotions. How did stepping away from that safe path shift your perspective on success?
in terms of success, it is relative for everybody. But for me at that time, I was already well into my career. I've already jumped a few agencies. I worked in small agencies, big agencies. I've worked abroad. So and then even when I came back, I'm working at this agency, and I realized no matter how much I got done, no matter how many pieces I was producing, working till midnight, coming back at 7 in the morning, these catalogs would show up even at my address,
Mhm.
and I would see people looking at these catalogs, take a quick glance, and just toss it,
Right.
put it right back in the recycling. And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, "Is this what I went to school for? This when I was a kid?" And I said, "I'm gonna be." Was this it? So I decided that I was gonna pursue art just because it was something that was really itching inside. It was like it was something visceral. I dedicated a year to it,
Mhm.
treated it like a full-time job.
Mhm.
I woke up the same time I would have woken up to go to work, put in the same kind of hours I would have put in at work.
Mhm. So was there any self-doubts? How did you push through those self-doubts when you decided to take that year?
The self-doubts kick in when you realize you're not gonna be getting a steady paycheck, right? Like, you go from a steady paycheck, the income is predictable, your bills are taken care of, you don't have to worry about that. That also gets you complacent.
Right.
It also gets you a little bit lazy. But ultimately, I dedicated, and I was locked in that I was gonna make this happen
Right.
one way or another. I was okay with failing at the end of the year, but I was not okay with never trying.
So what type of support system? Because support systems are really important
Yep.
when you're making decisions like that and not having a steady income. What type of support system did you have?
That's a good question. When I was with my daughter's mother, and so I remember asking her, I'm like, "Listen, allow me to try this for 1 year." The thing is, when you get started, it was good up until you really start to realize that your shift in lifestyle. So I was lucky my family was on board and supported me. Ultimately, those insecure questions do come up 3 o'clock in the morning, midnight, and I'm thinking my daughter's only 2 years old, 3 years old. What am I doing? Like, why am I pursuing this? Finances are not secure. They may not come right away, but I was determined because I knew at some point it's gonna come in, it's gonna trickle in. But to get from here to there, super, super hard.
What advice would you give someone that's in that same position, but they're kind of stuck in a 9 to 5? What advice would you give?
My suggestion is do your homework.
Mhm.
Do your homework, do your homework, do your homework. Know where you're going first and think it through. And once you're ready, make sure listen to your heart, listen to your gut, and follow through 100%.
And so, with that same attitude, you're now in the York Minster Art Gallery. So, it's a cool journey for you. What is that journey about? How does it feel to have your work being displayed in this setting?
Amazing. It's amazing. It's quite an honor. I'm super grateful I'm here. The environment is amazing. They've been an amazing group to work with. When we finally confirmed that we're gonna post my artwork here, that gave me a little bit, what do you call it, a fire under my seat
Yeah.
to start producing some new pieces, and from that, 8 new pieces were born specifically for this space.
Earlier, you spoke about the materials of like that beautiful shirt you're wearing, and you create art around this type of material. Is it kitenge?
Kitenge, yeah.
Can you explain that type of art and the process and how you came to
Yeah,
kind of deliver that?
I take Kitenge because of the beautiful, intricate patterns that they have, the colors that they have, and then I would paste them either on wood panel or on canvas,
Right.
and then I would slowly build up layers of thin, transparent layers built up. So in between each layer of color is a varnish. Let that dry, and then I would work on another layer, and then slowly build it up. So by the time you see the final color or the final iteration of any of the portraits, there's about 10 to 20, or sometimes less. Sometimes it's only a handful of layers. But the whole goal is to make sure that I show the subject matter
Mhm.
with the patterns, with the colors in the background. Africa in general, in Western culture, tends to be seen as like this war-stricken, poverty-stricken, sad, poor me, um, dilapidated nations. You go there, and one visit will change your life. There's so much more to Africa, and its nations and its people and the culture, that I had to find a way to tell those stories
Yes, because it seems like in your work you challenge that stereotype. So any last words you have of just having your work in this gallery?
To Shannon and York Minster Art Gallery. What was kind of cool was meeting the congregation and bringing some of my folks and people who've been fans of my art. And just that vibe was different. But the show's here till April 24th. It's definitely worth your while to come see these pieces in person.
Where else can they find your work?
I'm online, hanspope.com. I'm on Instagram, same handle, hanspope.com.
Thank you so much, Hans.
Yes,
I
sir.
learned so much about your art, and I really like your pieces. This was an amazing episode with York Minster Park Gallery. Peace.